Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I'm Jordan Jones. Basketball season is now officially over, and Purdue's attention is turned to next year. We'll look ahead to what Purdue will look like when it hits the reset button with the departure of 4 senior starters. We'll talk about the transfer portal as it's now officially open and more. If you don't already, be sure follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We'll be talking all summer long. Purdue basketball, Purdue football, a little bit of Chicago Cubs in there. We'll be talking all things. Come join the conversation at Boilers Beyond. We need stuff to talk about this summer. I'll be here all summer long. We've got some good interviews scheduled. We've got some good stuff to talk about, but I need things to talk about. What do you want me to talk about? Send it my way. Do it on Twitter. You can email the show, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com, and be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode wherever you get your podcasts. So what's next? Purdue bid farewell to Braden Smith, to Fletcher Lawyer, to Trey Kaufman-Renn, guys who have started every game over the last 3 seasons, played in every game over the last 4. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer started every game they played at Purdue. Last week's episode was a bit of a farewell, a tribute to them. If you missed that, you can go back and listen to it. Perhaps the most impactful class that Purdue has ever recruited. Perhaps the best class to come through Mackey Arena. This is a pretty significant reset for Purdue, even if it's not a rebuild. I don't think this is a rebuild situation. I don't even know if you call it a retool, because as you kind of look ahead, I think Purdue's going to have a good deal of continuity for its returners. I don't think you're going to see a huge roster turnover from the portal or anything, but this sizable group of players returning, now the question becomes, what are they in their new roles? Because everybody that returns for Purdue will be playing a different role next year than they were this past season, than they were 2 years ago. It starts at the point guard position, where Braden Smith transformed the reality of that spot for Purdue. Purdue has never had someone who was that true of a point guard. Lewis Jackson was a true point guard. PJ Thompson was a true point guard. But neither of those guys were facilitators in the way that Braden Smith was a facilitator. A passer first, which is quite something to say about a guy who almost scored 2,000 points, but he was a pass first point guard. You won't replace Braden Smith. You can't. The guy was a 2-time All-American. He has the NCAA record for assists. His jersey will be in the rafters at Mackey Arena. You don't just replace a guy like that. But to take his spot is exactly what Purdue brought Omer Meyer in to do. Now, Omer Meyer will not be the same player that Braden Smith was. They're different. Their games are different. But there's a ton to be excited about with Omer Meyer. As the season went along, you could see Omer Meyer getting more and more comfortable playing the college game. It's a very different game than what European professional basketball looks like. But early on in the year, you saw him shooting a ton, really forcing things at times. I remember it was around the new year, I think, when Omer Meyer had taken the 4th most shots on Purdue's team and was closer to 3rd than he was 5th. And that wasn't exactly what Purdue needed from him. He wasn't ready for that. But as the season went along, you saw him get more selective. You saw him get really good at getting to his spots in the pull-up game. You saw him start shooting the three-point ball better, letting things come to him. But he never lost confidence, and that was a really positive sign for Purdue. He's smooth. He's really smooth getting to his shots. It's one of the best attributes he has that I think you're really going to see come through next year as the ball is in his hands more. He got more comfortable defensively. He's got a big body, a big frame. Next season, he is going to move in to a more high-volume shooter role. He'll be more of a facilitator. He's going to have the keys to the offense, the way Braden Smith had the keys to the offense. but he's going to be more of a shoot-first point guard than Braden Smith was. He's going to be someone who looks to score more than Braden Smith did at times. Now, when Braden Smith wanted to go score, he was really good at it. I think you're going to see Omer Meyer be more of a scorer first, but also someone who does have the ability to facilitate. When you look at that aspect of his game, the facilitating, the passing, the initiating offense, it's really hard to judge much from this year because he didn't have the ball in his hands as the point guard all that much. That's a position where you really have to settle into the game. You have to get a feel for what the defense is throwing at you, how the defense is handling your counters, how it's handling ball screen coverage. And that's not something you can do when you're just playing spot minutes for Braden Smith here and there. That's not, it's like a quarterback who comes in for a series when the starter gets dinged up. You can judge it, and sometimes it's great, sometimes it's not, but it's hard to really get a feel when you're not out there getting those reps in, getting into the game flow there. The big question is, how much can he run an offense similarly to what Purdue did with Braden Smith? And it's not just Omer Meyer. The big guys are in a part of that. The shooters are a part of that. But how comfortable is he in some of that action, feeding the post in pick and roll action, throwing up lobs, kicking out to open shooters? Braden Smith was incredible at that. His court vision was something that we've never seen before. It's unbelievable. That's kind of what I'm curious to see, because Purdue did shift so heavily to a point guard driven offense of high ball screens, of reading defenses. How much of that continues? I don't think you'll see the ball screen stuff go away. I don't think you'll see Purdue revert back to a motion heavy offense the way it was in the late 2010s, but what does that look like exactly? Omer Meyer's capabilities are going to be a very big part of that, and I think the big man presence will be too, and we'll get to that. But Omer Meyer, as you project into next year, he is the singular biggest piece that's going to determine what Purdue is. I think that's a really great place to be in. I really do. He's had a year to get comfortable in the system. He's had a year to get comfortable playing alongside some of these guys. That's a real positive. And now you'll see what he can do playing 30 minutes a game at the point guard spot. Elsewhere in the backcourt, Purdue has some really nice pieces returning. CJ Cox is a 2-year starter. A lot of positives there. He has that microwave ability, like you're on NBA 2K, where the guy can just heat up. You saw it right away against Alabama as a freshman when he hit 3 threes in a row. Last year, Purdue won that game at Welsh Ryan Arena because of CJ Cox. He got red hot in that second half and got Purdue a win. He's more than capable as a secondary ball handler. Defensively, he was Purdue's best defender last season, I think. He and Jakari Harris both did some really good things. I think for CJ Cox, is he capable of being that featured backcourt scorer? That image for Purdue fans is always going to be Carson Edwards, and I don't think that's fair. That's not fair to put on him. And I don't know that that's the role he's going to play. You have to be substantially better than everyone else on your team to get the shot volume that Carson Edwards had in 2019. But what does the scalability look like? Is he creating off the bounce? Is he someone that can go from, I don't have it in front of me, maybe 5 or 6 shots a game to someone who's taking 10 shots a game? And how does the efficiency stack up there? Can he continue to do some good stuff in the mid-range? He's now your marked man. The biggest change for CJ Cox is going to be this. When teams defended Purdue on the perimeter last year, Braden Smith was the number 1 guy you worried about, but Fletcher Loyer was the number 2. And that gave CJ Cox some really good opportunities as the guy on the other side of the floor, as the guy that teams would have to help off on when they got in a bind. That gave him some great chances to get open looks, to create. Now he's going to have more attention on him. How does that translate? And I think the other thing is transition. If Purdue wants to push it a little bit more next year, and I think you have a backcourt that's capable of doing that, decision-making in transition is a big deal there. At times this year, it wasn't great. I can think of a few instances where there were some poor decisions in transition that really hurt the flow of the game and hurt some momentum, and you'll never be without that. That's going to be part of it. When you play in transition, you're going to have mistakes, but where can he improve there as a decision maker when the ball is in his hands and Purdue has a 3-on-2, Purdue has a 2-on-1, Purdue has a 3-on-1, whatever it may be. Jakari Harris is in a similar spot. He's been up and down as a three-point shooter over his first 2 years, and the home versus non-home splits are just crazy. One of the wilder stats you'll ever see. But he's played with some real tenacity at times. The defense is there. When the three-point shooting is there, you have your quintessential 3-and-D type of guy. Again, for him, what is his ceiling as an offensive player? Can he provide more off the bounce? You saw him a couple times this year get to the rim when the lane was there. Can he create in the mid-range? Can he get all the way to the rack more frequently? It's tough. It's been tough for him because the minutes haven't been super consistent, and when the minutes have been there, he's been your fourth or fifth option on offense. What does it look like now that more is going to be asked of him? That's the question for all of this, the scalability of it. You've seen these guys on low volume. You've seen these players as a tertiary option on offense. Now what do you do when they're the primary, when they're the secondary, when the defenses are spending their 3 days of prep on you, not on Braden Smith, not on Fletcher Lawyer, not on Trey Kaufman-Wren out of the short roll? That's different. That's different. But you have a really strong duo defensively. You look at those two, and that is as good of a duo as Purdue has had defensively in a while. You're probably going back to Nogel Eastern and Eric Hunter. And when you add Omer Meyer in there, that's a really nice defensive backcourt. And you add Antoine West to the fold with all the hype in the world around him. Now, I'll say this, and this is nothing against Antoine West. I'm really high on what he can be. You don't really hear guys had a bad redshirt year, you know. It's like when Matt Painter went to Big Ten Media Day a few years back and said, yeah, like everyone else, we had a great summer and we're excited to get the season going. No one ever says they're not. No one ever says they had a bad summer. No one ever says that a player had a bad redshirt year. But how ready is he right away? What's his ceiling? What is he right away? That's the question, because it will have been a year since he played in a competitive game. Is he an initiating offense kind of guy, a give the ball to him and get out of the way? As a three-point shooter, is he a pushing 40% guy? Is he a closer to 30% guy? These are all the questions that have to be answered. You've got a lot of really positive reviews on him as a defender, and that's impressive. You're looking at a Purdue backcourt right now that could be really, really good defensively. And that could really change the way Purdue operates as a team and the way that Purdue approaches the game defensively. The last few years, Purdue has not been great defensively. There's been a lot of hand-wringing about it. There's been a lot of criticism of it. Look, I get it, and Purdue could have been better at times defensively. There's not really an excuse for some of the performances it had on that end of the floor, but your team was built around three guys, none of whom would really be considered plus defenders. Purdue had to piece together a defense the best it could. The system required a lot of parts to be in sync, and at times it was, at times it wasn't. But with this group in the backcourt, you might be a little more straight up. You might be able to play a little bit more straight up, to ask less of your guys in help. We'll see. We'll see. The proof is going to be in the pudding, but on paper, I really like what Purdue has defensively in the backcourt. and you have pieces on offense that are really interesting. How much of a day one contributor is Luke Ertl? A guy coming in with a lot of fanfare. He's going to win Indiana Mr. Basketball, won the state championship at Mount Vernon. He's skilled. He's really competitive. All of that points in a positive direction, but it's a big jump. Going from Central Indiana high school basketball to the Big Ten is a big jump. Braden Smith is the exception. He's not the rule. We'll see what Luke Ertl is, but he's also going into a situation where he's not going to be relied upon the same way Braden Smith was from day one. Luke Ertl has a little bit more cushion there. Going to be really interesting. As you look at the backcourt, where does Jacob Weber slot in? He's a big-time shooter. Where are the minutes at? Jack Benter, does he contribute at the 3 spot at all? Is he more of a 4-man, and that's just where he's going to end up? I don't know. The 3 spot's probably a little bit more natural, but defensively, how does that work out? There are a lot of questions about this backcourt, but you look at it as the strength of the team. And that's been the case for a little bit at Purdue, the last 2 years, I guess. And you look at the front court as just a gigantic question mark for Purdue. Is the lineage has gone here? Purdue has had that low post go-to scorer every year for more than a decade now. A.J. Hammonds to Isaac Haas to Caleb Swanigan, Travion Williams, Zach Edey, Trey Kaufman-Wren. Does Purdue have that guy on next year's team? Daniel Jacobson showed some flashes. We're still at this point looking at potential over proven production, but I will say this. There's a chance it all comes together for him next year, and he is a really, really impactful player because he's 7'4", he's long, he has the ability to be a really good rim protector. That's something you can see in him, even if at times this year, maybe he was a step slow. The consistency hasn't been there. Strength is important. He's not going to be a bodybuilder. He's not going to come out there like the Incredible Hulk and have the frame that Zach Edey had, that Isaac Haas and A.J. Hammonds had. But can he be more comfortable with the basketball in his hands? Can he be a little bit more durable battling on the boards? If he can get there, the sky's the limit. It's a really big offseason for him. But he's going to have an opportunity next year to really become Purdue's next big-time big man. Now, again, it requires some projection, but there's a lot there to like. That's not one to quit on. Raleigh Burgess is going to come in off of a red shirt, and it's a bit of a reset for his Purdue career. He came in out of high school where he had an injury his senior season and then got hurt in January of his freshman year and played through it. Now he's had a year off. He's healthy. Where does he slot into things? Is he more of a 4? Is he more of a 5? He has that tweener build, the tweener height. We'll see where he's at as a defender. Can he guard at the 4? These are all questions we're going to have to see because it's not like Raleigh Burgess got a ton of minutes as a freshman 2 years ago to get a great feel on this. Is he capable as a back-to-the-basket scorer? Is he more of a pick-and-pop guy? If he's playing the 4, can he put the ball on the floor? These are all questions that need to be answered. And then Sinan Juan comes in. Again, projecting freshmen is really hard. He's showcased some really positive things in international competition, but this will probably be more of a wait and see what he's like when he arrives kind of deal. Purdue brought in Caden Pierce already out of the transfer portal, Princeton transfer. That's your big get. That is the addition that Purdue got that is this year's version of Lance Jones, is this year's version of Oscar Clough. That is the big-time addition that Purdue went and got. He's a wing more so than he is a classic front court piece. Jack Benner's probably in the same mold there. Rivers Knight also comes in. Again, we'll see. I've got to be honest here. I don't know that Purdue's ever brought in a player I know as little about as Rivers Knight. We'll see. We'll see. But that's where Purdue is right now. That's where That's where the roster is at. If I miss someone, I'm sorry. That's where the roster is at. Does Purdue make another move in the transfer portal? If Purdue does do something, I think the front court makes a lot of sense. It's thin. I'll preface this with I don't think Oscar Clough will be back. Everything I've gathered, everything I've heard leads me to believe that that is highly unlikely at this point. He's going to have to petition for an extra year of eligibility based on the junior college court cases that have gone through and mostly been shot down. And then if he is really that adamant about it, he can sue the NCAA. I don't know that I see that happening. So, does Purdue look to add in the front court? It's a bit of a tricky situation because if everything goes well and Daniel Jacobson takes a big freshman to sophomore leap and Raleigh Burgess looks like a much, I don't want to say different player, but a much more comfortable guy coming off a redshirt year, and Sinan Juan is ready to play and can give you real contribution as a freshman, and you're probably pretty good at the 5. And then you look at the 4 where maybe you're undersized or you're oversized with Raleigh Burgess, and you try to figure out where you're at there. But if things don't go the way you want, you're really thin there. And that's something that Purdue hasn't been in a long time. But that's what Matt Painter's going to have to make a decision on here. There's a lot of debate on the best way to construct a roster right now, and as the portal is open, I'm recording this Monday night. Looks like the second half is about to start between Michigan and UConn. There's a lot of debate on the best way to construct a roster, and you're going to see teams drastically overhaul their roster here over the next handful of weeks. I don't know that we're deep enough into the portal era to have a great feel for the best way to do things, but Purdue wants to keep doing this in a more traditional fashion where it builds its roster out of high school and then it supplements out of the transfer portal. If you ask me, I think that's the good bet for Purdue to make. What Purdue has done here is really impressive in terms of being able to cling to that, being able to actually make that work in an era where I guess you can old takes expose me, but as the second half starts here, it looks like Michigan's about to win a national title, starting 5 transfers. I think 4 of them are there for the first year this year. That's different. That's not what Purdue's doing. But you're not relying on winning bidding wars. You're not relying on rebuilding your roster every year. I think Purdue is capable of holding its own when it comes to compensation, but Purdue's not a shark in this world. Purdue is not going to be out there spending monopoly money trying to put a roster together at the top of the sport from a financial standpoint every year. Purdue's not going to be the most egregiously aggressive program when it comes to tampering and recruiting year-round guys on other rosters and dangling money out there. Now, every year is going to be more and more telling on the viability of all of this, right? I mean, the longer that Purdue goes without being shell-shocked by a few transfers and not being able to backfill that, the more it looks like this is going to be just fine. The longer that Purdue goes without a situation where a couple of guys you're really relying on don't pan out, whether they get hurt or just aren't as good as you hope. Right now, Purdue's been pretty good at avoiding that. And the longer you avoid that, the more it looks like this is really, really going to work. I think the center position is a bit of a complication here, but Purdue's really built this thing in a unique manner where, we'll see what happens. Anything can happen, but there's not been a guy who's announced his intention to enter the portal yet. And I don't know if there's a team that didn't make the Final Four that can say that. I'm sure there is, but they're few and far between. If Purdue doesn't lose anyone to the portal, I wonder how many other power conference teams have that happen. And Purdue already did add a big transfer piece. I mean, Caden Pierce was news in February, so it's not news that you're, all fired up about right now. But that's a big addition. That's a really big one for Purdue. Purdue's going to look different next season. It's going to look different on both ends of the floor. Its personnel is going to look very different. It's not going to be in any of the preseason top 5, top 10 lists that come out. As you're listening to this, everyone's going to have theirs that they post the morning after the national title game. Purdue's not going to be there. I think a lot of places will give Purdue the benefit of the doubt and put it towards the bottom of the top 25, and that probably feels right. The expectations will be a lot lower. That's something that is a double-edged sword because you really like that. It's a wonderful compliment to your program when you are really highly regarded coming into a season, but it also leads to a lot of misery. And I think this season was a great example of that. The season that Purdue made it to the national title game, until the NCAA tournament, Purdue was awesome, but even every loss then was just brutal. And now you're kind of hitting that reset button the way you did 4 years ago, when Purdue was not expected to do a ton, and then you look up and Purdue just won the PK 85 as number 1 in the country, and everything just got turned upside down for the next 4 years. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see, but I think as you look at this, Purdue's in a really good position. We'll see if Purdue does anything else out of the portal. If you're putting a gun to my head, I think the center position is worth exploring, but also it's not the easiest spot to recruit to because you do have some bodies there. You have some known commodities there. It's not like these teams that are reloading every year out of the portal and just tearing it down to studs and rebuilding in one summer where you're able to promise everybody everything. That's not quite what exists at Purdue. So we'll see. And it's going to be a fun summer talking about this as we look ahead to what should be a really interesting season. This episode is brought to you by me. Yes, me. When I'm not watching sports, or more accurately, talking about them, I'm talking insurance with the people of Indiana. As an agent with Indiana Farm Bureau Insurance, I'm here to help you protect what you've worked hard to achieve. From home and auto to life and business insurance, I'm here to help you. Give me a call at 317-846-5861 or email me, jordan.jones@infarmbureau.com. Let's protect you from life's everyday risks. I had a question. A good friend of mine wanted me to talk about just kind of the big picture of things and why to still be invested in college sports when the landscape looks a little bit different than it used to with the money, with the free flowing of transfers and all of that. And I'll say it's up to you. I mean, ultimately, if you don't get any enjoyment out of this, then don't invest your time or energy or money into it because, it's a lot of time. If you really want to follow this stuff super hardcore, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of energy if you're going to be really passionate about it. And if you want to go travel around and, go to all these games and go to the NCAA tournament, it's a lot of money. I'll say this. To me, college sports are still the best. It is still incredibly unique. The passion of it, it's something you don't get elsewhere. The environments of college sports are unlike anything else. The passion of the fans is different. The portal is interesting to me. The biggest thing for me with the portal and with the NIL, with the compensation of it all, is that all of this stuff has been really enforced by the court of law, which I do have respect for. And when it's deemed illegal, unconstitutional, to operate the way things used to be, then I have a tough time really longing for that. The players deserve a cut. Like revenue sharing is a good concept. The players bring in a lot of that revenue, and they deserve to be able to make money. Like I get it. It's gotten out of control. The numbers are astronomical. And as you look ahead to the portal this year in basketball, it's going to be huge. You hear about 25, 30, $35 million football rosters. It's all different, man. But it's all interesting enough for me to follow to where I don't hate it. Like, I'm going to be sitting here the next handful of weeks, and I'm going to be reading about potential landing spots for guys and seeing what teams do what and all of that. Of course, I still long for the good old days. This isn't the sport I fell in love with. It is a youngster on my PlayStation 2 playing NCAA Football 05 with Larry Fitzgerald on the cover, or playing the college basketball video games. It's different. It's not the same sport that I fell in love with when, I remember watching National Signing Day stuff in football on ESPNU in the middle of February, and it was awesome. The sport's different, but to me, it is still the most captivating product out there. It's the most unique product out there. College sports fans are still my favorite. I love Cubs and Bears fans too. I am one of them, but it's still unique, and that's what I love about it. But the uncontrolled nature is fascinating, and we'll see. We'll see what this portal season looks like, because every year has a little bit different of an identity to it, and we'll see where we're at in November when this all gets going again. But, again, thank you guys for another great year. This was a blast. It certainly had its ups and downs with Purdue this year, but all in all, another really fun year. I'm excited to come on all summer and talk. So send me what you want me to talk about. I mean, this is your show. I do this to interact with you all. Email me, boilersandbeyondpod@gmail.com. Tweet me @boilersbeyond. Let me know what you want me to talk about. We'll talk about it. And enjoy Masters Week, everybody. Some great golf this week. So enjoy it. We'll talk next week. Take care.